Battlefield 6 launched with massive hype, hundreds of thousands of players, insane expectations, and now the player count has fallen off a cliff. We started with almost 700,000 peak players when the game launched, and I know it's not realistically feasible for a game to keep its players over, the longer course of a period of time, but the fact that we've seen almost a 90% drop off in player count over the last couple months that Battlefield's been launched is very concerning. And today I'm going to break down why Battlefield 6 is losing players and kind of what's going wrong, pointing out a couple different issues of the game and whether or not this game can actually recover. If you played Battlefield and felt like something just isn't right, it's not just you, and by the end of this video you'll kind of understand why. Now, I will say that I haven't been playing too much Battlefield 6. I've been playing a lot more RedSec lately than the actual main game, but a lot of these core issues are still present. And while I may not be the most qualified Battlefield enjoyer to talk about these issues, I have played a lot of other FPS games like PUBG, where, the same kind of thing that we're seeing with this game now is prevalent in other games that I've experienced in the past. Again, I just want to preface this by saying that I don't hate Battlefield. I actually really enjoy the game, but I just want Battlefield to realize that this is an issue that they need to fix if they want to maintain player bases, whether it be competitive or casual, because it just makes the game feel terrible in general from any standpoint. But the technical issues in this game, with the desync and hit registration, it might be the worst game as far as technical issues that I've played in the modern day of games. The desync in the game is so bad right now, and it's even worse being an aggressive player, that wants to push every shot and peek things around corners, is that the desync is so bad when you unpeek from a corner. It's not just one step that you're still taking damage from after you unpeek. There's times where you take 4, 5, 6 steps around a corner where you're almost halfway to the other side of a building and you're still getting shot from the other side of the building. That it's actually like mind-blowing how that's even physically possible, especially when I'm not even playing on 250 ping. I'm playing on my own East Coast ping servers where I only have 20 or 30 ping at a time, and getting desynced that badly is just so mind-boggling to me. And I'm sure somebody out there can explain much better than I can about why these issues are happening. Whether that be from a server side thing or a game development thing, I have no idea. I have no background in that sort of thing. So I can't give my feedback based on those things. I can only give my feedback on what I'm experiencing in the game. And I know a lot of other people are experiencing it too, because I've seen similar feedback from other players and other creators. So if you understand that on a higher level than what I do and can explain it so my little peanut head can understand, leave a comment below. Or maybe the game development was just rushed and the servers are dog shit and no further explanation is needed. And again, specifically talking about RedSec here, when you have a game that's centered on, gunfights and close quarter engagement, I'm not saying this necessarily applies to all Battlefields, because I know a lot of the game is focused around vehicle play with jets and tanks and different things, but specifically referencing RedSec, when you have a game that's focused on core gunplay mechanics, to have desync and hit registration issues that are this poor has a very negative connotation on the feelings of players, specifically competitive players, on the longevity of wanting to play this game. And aside from the hit registration issues, you have so many other small bugs, some more substantial than others, but just to name a few, you have the armor plate bug, which I know is being fixed in this next upcoming update. You have issues where you open chests and they either don't open entirely or they duplicate into multiple chests, which can work out in your favor sometimes if you're getting good loot. And one of the even bigger bugs, in my opinion, is sometimes the lobbies just, get almost full and then slowly start losing players because they never fully fill up. And it's just stuff like that over time, when it doesn't get fixed, will start to slowly kill the game. Maps are always going to be the talking point of any game, no matter what it is, whether it be PUBG, Call of Duty, Battlefield. It's always going to be one of the main aspects of the actual gameplay that people are going to focus on, especially with Battlefield. Again, I haven't played a lot of the older Battlefields. I was never a big Battlefield player before, playing a lot of PUBG, but community sentiment around map size and kind of design around the Battlefield 6 and the RedSec maps, it's a majority of what I've seen is kind of negative, to be honest. And a lot of that, historically, Battlefield have always had a very large map pool, very large map with the amount of like playable area and the terrains and just attention to detail in the past. And with current Battlefield, we really don't have a lot of that. And this is me mainly, again, just talking from feedback that I've seen from other players. But even in the Battle Royale scene, like with PUBG, we got, a new map every now and then. But it was really never enough to keep the game fresh and, kind of move away from that staleness. Battlefield even confirmed today that they're bringing back a map from Battlefield 4 called Gulmad Railway. And even just from the short time that they've announced that post from earlier today, even the negative, comments of people talking about, how Gulmad Railway is one of the worst maps that they could have brought back from the previous Battlefield series. And there's other maps that they could have, they would have much rather seen. Now, Battlefield's come out and said that, hey, it's going to be, a lot different from the map that you were used to in previous Battlefield game. They're almost destroying that sense of trust, with the community, because you have a group of players and a player base that have been asking for new maps, like new designs, since the game came out. It's been out for a few months now, and we really haven't had any updates as far as map goes. And for the, developers to come out and say, hey, we're, recycling an old map from a previous game, it's kind of really just a kick in the teeth, honestly. And like I said, I don't play that much multiplayer, but to see that from the outside looking in, I'm playing a brand new game when you haven't had a game release in quite a long time, just for them to recycle old content, it may have worked for some games in the past, like Call of Duty when they brought back Terminal in certain aspects of their games. But when you release a game every other year, it's a little bit easier to save for than with like the Battlefield series where you don't have releases that often. And they have also said that they're going to come out with a new map with the release of Season 2, which has been delayed till February. But again, it doesn't, create a big sense of confidence when you have a season delay that was pushed back so far. To rebuild that sense of trust, the first step is really going to be making sure that you nail that new map release come Season 2 update when that launches. Now, one of the reasons that Battlefield could also be struggling is the fact that it's launched into one of the most competitive shooter markets ever, with a multitude of different games, and not even just shooters in general, but all sorts of games. I mean, you look at the success that Arc Raiders has had, has pulled a large player base, surely out of this community as well as other communities. Even the people that left their communities to come try out Battlefield, a lot of them have already returned back to their original communities because Battlefield is just not providing the updates and the content, that they had hoped for. You look at players like, Huskers and some of the other big content creators that have come over from Warzone and various other games. A lot of them jumped onto the Battlefield hype in the beginning, but have since returned to their respective communities that they came from. And, whether a lot of that may be tied to monetization or different things, it's hard to say, because Warzone, from what I've heard, I don't play Warzone myself, but I've heard that it's not in the greatest state in the world either. It's a tough place for Battlefield to be in, but at the same time, they could also really capitalize on that. So I talked previously about how Battlefield could really knock it out of the park if they have a successful Season 2 launch, and a lot of that will rely heavily on revamping the new map that they're bringing back from Battlefield 4 and releasing the new map that they're working on development for their Contamination Season 2 that's supposed to be launched soon. But the reality is, when you've had a strong fall off, kind of like Battlefield has had over the course of the last 2 months, this is essentially your chance to almost have like a relaunch of the game in a sense. You can pull people from these other communities, with the launch of the new season, but Battlefield definitely needs to keep stepping in the direction of fixing bugs and just improving general gameplay, that they've just struggled on for the last couple weeks. And we're, again, starting to see that with, some of the patches that they've released. And it's just something that they need to continue working on and just fine-tuning their game. And I think if you combine that with, this new season release, and if you can draw a lot of players from those other games and keep them by knocking it out of the park, there's a real chance that Battlefield could become, that winning piece and a game that keeps people the next few months. But then, a lot of that also relies on continued development of new maps and continued improvement of gameplay. But we'll see how that goes post Season 2. So if you guys have stayed this long in the video, I appreciate you. If you want more Battlefield content or any of this informational type stuff in general, leave a like and a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on where you think Battlefield is headed. Can Battlefield recover at this point? Maybe. I don't really know for sure. It's just going to depend a lot on, you know, how they kind of progress moving forward with content updates and that sort of thing. You know, people that play Battlefield, they want to see Battlefield succeed, but the ball is really in their court at this time.